terrors of technology. Okay, sorry about that. Just had a bit of a gremlin in the works. Terrors of technology. Okay, sorry about that. Just had a bit of a. Okay. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm going to turn up the sound a little bit, just until. Let's see what the levels are here. Yeah, okay. Maybe move it a bit closer. But then, I'm not an expert at this, as you can tell. So, one of the first things, just today, that we're gonna. Sorry about the fan sound in the background. I had a couple of people who pointed it out last week and stuff, and there's really nothing I can do about it. We've got no air conditioning in this office, and it's just absolutely roasting here now. So I don't want to drop dead while doing any of this stuff. So you have to put up with that fan sound in the background. Having said that, this is the last one for this month, and then we're going to do another live stream next month. It's just during the summer months I tend to pull back a little bit on the YouTube stuff and concentrate more on what we're doing for the members over on Habits V2. It's just that it just gets very hot here, and the energy levels tend to sap a little bit. So there you go. But we'll be putting up more content, so don't worry about it. There'll be more of the normal content. So looking forward to doing that. All right, just to explain the format here, if you haven't been here before, the live chat is open to members. There's a join button down below if you want to ask a question while we're live. There's other perks as well that you can, depending on the level that you choose. It just helps us to put on these shows. I'm going to talk about 3 different things, and once this live stream is over, then we're going to chop those 3 things up and post them during the week into different videos. So the first one is just on nutrition. We had a super chat question there a couple of weeks ago, and I've just got around to doing this now. So it's just basically about what I was, or how my nutrition has developed since I stopped drinking alcohol and how it's affected me. And the next one is about vulnerability, and the third one is our regular spot where we're going to start talking to parents or dads, from my perspective. And so we'll get on with it. First one is nutrition, and basically it's my perspective on what I was doing. So, nutrition can be a fairly political thing, I think, for some people. They can put a certain spin on it, and they can turn into not just a talking point, but people start to get really antsy about other people's diets, or, I'm not pushing anything on anyone. For me, my life when I was drinking alcohol, my diet was complete crap. I tried to eat well when I wasn't drinking, but as soon as I had a few pints in me, all of that kind of stuff went down the Swanee, and I was more of a junky food person, eating the crappiest food. The salt, fat, and sugar were my staples. And I'm not sure if that's something to do with your taste buds, or just your inhibitions are lowered to a certain degree, and you just get to a point where you don't give a shit anymore. Inhibitions are there for a reason. That reasonable, rational thinking where you're thinking about your future as well as what you're doing in the moment. It's important, and I think when you're drinking, that sort of drops along with everything else. So that was where I was. I stopped drinking alcohol, and I tried to change a bit of what I was doing in the early days. first couple of months. I tried to change to more veggies and eat more fruits and stuff like that, because that's what we were taught with the food pyramid. But I didn't have much knowledge about nutrition in general. June of that year, so 6 months after I stopped, my dad went into hospital, and they basically said that his whole body was shutting down and his organs were shutting down, and it was because of his diet and his lifestyle. He'd been a smoker for a long time. He drank, not loads, but he was still a drinker, and he just ate a very an Irish diet, as you could say. A lot of fats, a lot of meat, a lot of carbohydrates, not too much junk food, but it was just a lot of food that he ate. So he came out of hospital, and he was fine, not fine, but he lasted. He died about 3 or 4 years after that. But they said he wasn't coming out of the hospital, and he's a fighter, So he lasted a few more years. He changed the way he was thinking. He changed the way that he ate, and that sort of gave him a bit more of an outlook on life, a better outlook on life, a better view on what he was putting into his own body, and he wanted to live, So, but when he was doing that, when he was in the hospital, I started reading up then on nutrition, just for myself, and to try and help him when he came back out. And I was reading a couple of books. One was the China Study, and the other one was Whole, 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 Rethinking the Science of Nutrition. Both of these books are by a guy called Colin Campbell. I think it's M. Colin Campbell. I'm not sure anyway, but Colin Campbell is the guy's name. And he basically talks about the whole foods, plant-based diet. And it's not a vegan diet. It sounds vegan. I suppose a lot of the stuff that they're talking about is vegan. But vegan can be junk food as well as anything else. So veganism is not based around health. I mean, you can eat potato chips and drink Coca-Cola and you're a vegan, right? So it's not based around health. I mean, the only time that I used to say that I was a vegan was when I went into restaurants and they didn't understand what whole foods plant-based diet was, and especially if I was going into a Spanish restaurant here in Spain, and just trying to explain that to people was a nightmare. So that's what I said: vegan. Veganism is often derided, and it's something that I never sort of attach my own principles to, because there's such a huge lunatic fringe on the outskirts of it. I mean, there's a lot of people that I know who are vegans, who are very conscientious people, and they're very level-headed in themselves and what they do, and in how they talk about or don't talk about their own diets. So I think a lot of vegans can be preachy, and they tend to box you up and label you, and once you're under that label, you just get a lot of nutters in that group. I remember saying something earlier on when I was on a forum about what would they do with all the cows. It's an innocent question, and the amount of abuse I got was unreal. So they're just prone to a lot of dogma, and they're resistant to any form of criticism about what they're doing. So I mean, a much better approach, and I think a lot of vegans are coming around to this, is if you want to change society and you want more people to eat less animals, then you do it slowly, and you do it by educating people. You do it by being kind to people and saying, well, try it for a day, go vegan for a day, don't eat animal flesh for a day, don't eat, that kind of thing. So anyway, mine was a plant-based whole foods diet, plant-based being the operative word. So I would always, every so often, eat some eggs or something like that. So it wasn't wholly plant-based. It wasn't wholly vegan. And I've since introduced some fish and some chicken into my diet, small amounts of that, because it's just life is short for me, and I tend to use food as a tool more than anything else. And like I said, I'm sticking to whole food, plant-based, that basis of eating as many whole foods as I possibly can. So, I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about my food and what I was eating, my relationship with food. So it taught me a lot. And I was a vegan, or as close as I could be to a vegan, for about 8 years. And it's only in the last year that I've started to reincorporate some fish into my life, and like I said, chicken. I had chicken for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and I'd forgotten how to cook it, and it was the toughest bit of bird I've ever had in my life, so yeah, I have to do something different with that. Anyway, that's my nutrition. That's what I eat. I mean, I love fruits and vegetables now, and I didn't so much before, and I try and not to eat as much junk food. I don't hardly eat junk food. I suppose in percentage wise, maybe 5-10% of my food is could be classed as junk food, and I avoid the high end of that junk food, the really crappy stuff, if I can. There's no situation where I can go into now where I can't find decent food, good food, and the money that I always saved on alcohol can easily be put over to that. So I think what you put into your body is important. That's one of the things that I've learned is you are what you eat. I mean, your body, what you put inside your body has to use that as the building blocks for any repair work that it's doing. Your brain has to operate on that, so so if you're not putting the right stuff in, if you're not putting good quantities of the right stuff in, then you're going to suffer in the long run. So anyway, that's my diet. The next part is about vulnerability, and how vulnerability can make your life better. Right? There's when you stop drinking alcohol, there's a certain vulnerability to leaving behind your crutch. To opening yourself up. You've nowhere to hide anymore. When you're feeling shit, when you've got anxiety, when you can't relax, when you've had a bad day, when you've had an argument with somebody, when something crap happens in your life, you've got nowhere to hide away. In the beginning, it's even difficult to have fun, because you're so used to associating alcohol with fun that as soon as you're with other people and they're all drinking, or a lot of them are drinking, then it's difficult, because you feel like there's a piece of you that's missing, like somebody's taking something away from you. You feel almost naked in a certain way, and that gives you a certain vulnerability. This is where I try to help people the most, is in trying to understand and to dig down into their own vulnerabilities and to use it for their own advantage. When you stop drinking alcohol and you step out from that cave that you're in, I suppose a better one is maybe the old security blanket. Do you remember Linus from Snoopy? That's sort of a really dangerous version of a security blanket, but that's what we use it for. Most people use alcohol as a tool in one form or another, but it leaves you vulnerable. It leaves you vulnerable to the outside world, to other people, to environments, to mostly to yourself, mostly to it's internally, your ideas about who you are, what you're doing. You're standing out now. You're forcing yourself into a position where you're standing out. You're standing out from the crowd, and that puts you into a vulnerable position. You're asking yourself and continuously going over this thing. Why am I doing this? Why am I standing out? What am I going to do next? What am I going to do for fun? How am I going to enjoy myself now? Fear of missing out is a huge thing. How am I going to relax? Now that my crutch is gone, I can't relax. There's no way I can do this. How am I going to escape from my thoughts on myself and my life when I can't use this drug anymore to escape from? But the thing that most people don't understand is that vulnerability opens you up to change. You have to go through that barrier, that discomfort, and that discomfort comes all wrapped up in a certain vulnerability. It forces you to dig around in yourself and to dig around in your thoughts, to face certain thoughts maybe for the first time. Maybe, and this is an ongoing process. It's not something that will disappear after a few weeks. I mean, sometimes it takes a few weeks in order for you to start really getting down into your brain, into your mind, to start digging around in your, just in your own psyche and how you've been doing things. I think one of the first parts of this whole process is when you start to have to look for alternatives. So you're looking for alternatives to relaxation, or how do I stand with all my friends now when they're all drinking and I'm not, and I'm the one that's being left out, or at least I feel like I'm being left out. It's a time when you have to really examine yourself from many different aspects. You have to examine your values. This is something I never really did. You have a vague idea of what your values are, but I never really sat down and wrote them down and thought about them in any detail. What do I value in life? There's the obvious ones. I value my son. I value having some money. I value having a job. I value things like that. Very things that are completely apparent to you, to most people. But when you really dig down into it, what is it about having children that you value? What is it about having whatever you have in your life that you value? So this was something that really opened up for me over many years. Again, it's not something. I always say it's not the stopping drinking alcohol that's the toughest part of this. That's the simple part. It's this ongoing process of redeveloping yourself and digging down into your needs and finding out what your needs are, what needs are being met and what needs are not being met. Because that's what life is all about, is looking after your needs, looking after the needs of those around you, finding your strengths and your weaknesses. So it's in that defining who you are after you've stopped drinking alcohol, instead of, what's the alternative? To go through life after you've stopped drinking alcohol, believing that you're an alcoholic and that this is it, this is who you are. I'm sober, thankfully. And that's who I am. I'm in recovery for the rest of my life, and that's who I am. I mean, think about the two different mindsets, that those two ways of looking at things. Instead of improving yourself, I mean, I'm not saying that anyone who thinks of themselves as sober or an alcoholic, or is not trying to improve themselves. But when you have those labels of alcoholic and everything else that goes with it, I mean, alcoholic is the worst one, I think. Then it's like having you're trying to get somewhere with the handbrake on. It's always this thing that's going to hold you back, because it's always defining who you are. It's defining not only you as a person, but it's defining your thoughts. And once your thoughts are defined by whatever word that you use, I mean, you can take any concept, you can take it into yourself. I mean, one of the concepts that we've been using since the beginning is onwards and upwards. And you can take that and develop that concept in a way that either empowers you or, I mean, it's difficult for it to go in the opposite direction, but you get what I mean. I can't see how you can be empowered by calling yourself an alcoholic. maybe it will stop you from drinking, but there's plenty of better ways to stop you from drinking than that. So, one of the ways of doing this is to continuously question yourself. You're always teasing apart things. You're opening up yourself. I mean, this is part of the vulnerability as well, is that opening up the interior and digging around inside of it, questioning is part of that process. And that can bring you to some pretty emotional stuff, I mean, it can bring you to some, not just bad emotional stuff, but good emotional stuff, stuff. But I think it's the only way that you're going to grow in life, to get to that best possible version of yourself. You have to question yourself. You have to dig around. You have to question what you're doing, why you're doing it. Experimentation is an essential part of this whole process. Trying new things on, trying new ways to relax, trying new ways to socialize, trying new places to socialize, new people to socialize with. One of my biggest fears at the beginning was always, and I hear this time and time again, I'm going to lose all my friends, And there is two types of friends. I'm not sure if we talked about this last week, but there's the type of friends who are only your friends because you drink, and not because they want drink off you, but that's your relationship with them. And then there's the other type who maybe you drink with them, but you also have an exterior thing. Maybe you work with them, or you do something else. You play golf or something with them, or whatever. But there's another element to that relationship, and generally those people who are only there, whose only connection with you is alcohol, then they're going to drift apart as soon as you start to this process of dismantling and putting distance between yourself and alcohol, because the connection is gone. So experimentation is essential with this, and you're going through iterations. You're going through one thing after another, trying one thing on, and that's going to bring a certain amount of doubt and insecurity with it as well. But the more you do with this, the more you practice it, the more you're mindful about it, the more you question, the more you experiment, the less doubt that you are going to have about the process, about your ability to do these things, and the more secure you'll feel, the more confident you'll feel. Do you get what I mean? So, when I stopped, I was so vulnerable. I felt so vulnerable. I felt, that one thing that I always thought I had a good cap on was being a dad, and that was the one thing that sort of spilled over in those last days that I was drinking, and forced me to rethink that, And I was a good dad in certain ways. Doesn't take, it's not an all or nothing thing. There's many grey areas in this. So I was a great dad in certain areas, but in this one instance, and in the peripherals that surrounded that one instance of alcohol, I wasn't being a great dad. So I'm going to talk about this in a minute with the dad part of this live stream. So when I started out, well, one of the first things I did was to set up the YouTube channel, Alcohol Mastery TV, and set up the website, and get my camera out, my phone, and I started filming myself and recording it and posting it, and that made me vulnerable, but it helped me in that process of digging down into myself, because it forced me to start looking at things that I might not otherwise have looked at. So I'm very grateful for that, And if it didn't work, that was the problem that I had in the back of my mind. Was if it didn't work, I had to find work. I had to go out and look for work somewhere. And if they found out that I'd stopped drinking alcohol, there's always that preconceived notions about what it is, that those ideas, those prejudices that people have about drinkers. that they believe this bullshit that you're going to be an alcoholic for the rest of your life. So, that's what I'm talking about with the veganism. You're talking about that boxed perspective that somebody puts you into a box and says, well, because you eat a vegan diet, you're this certain way, and it's all bollocks. I mean, I know, as I said, plenty of people who are drinkers and non-drinkers and vegans and non-vegans and all sorts of stuff, and it's just, that's the way it is. So, burning my bridges at the end of the day helped me a lot with the starting out and what I was doing. But yeah, it was a vulnerable time, but it's a process that you have to go through if you want to get out the other side. It's just that transitional process, and a lot of it is to do with leaving behind the things that are not sorting out through your life, sorting out through, as I say, your values and your perspectives and your thoughts and your actions, sorting out through all that stuff, untangling the habit bit by bit, and killing some of it. You really have to leave some of it behind, and it is because you've got to kill certain parts of yourself. It becomes a certain grieving process, and it's very like a grieving process, because there's, when you lose somebody in your life, somebody close to you, it does leave you vulnerable, because it leaves a gap in your life, and it's a sort of a similar gap that's left with alcohol. So anyway, I'm going to leave that part of it for now, and I'm going to go on to the next one. Let's have a look. ABBM, no worries, thanks. Okay, just have a drink and then we can carry on to the next one. The next one is the parent spot, the dad spot. This one is about the regular, the chance to do what other people can only dream of doing, right? From a perspective of somebody, this is from a perspective of, I got a message, I think it was yesterday or the day before on YouTube, and it was from a young dad. I think he was in his late 30s, so he's still a young dad, but had a young baby. And he was saying that this was time, he was going to quit, he was sick of doing this, and he really wanted to face those facts and really be the best dad that he could be, And this was always my intention for this channel, was to help. Started out to help myself, and then it went on to helping as many people as I could who were in the same position. But my ultimate aim is to stop as many young people as I can, young kids, from growing up into that atmosphere and starting to drink alcohol. And I think one of the best ways that I can do that is to influence dads and to stop dads and moms, parents, from drinking. I'm talking from the perspective of a dad, so I can only really speak from that perspective. So I can talk for moms as well, because it's similar, but do you get what I mean? I'm always coming from a dad perspective. For me, it's about stopping the poison of yourself. It's about stopping the poison not only of your physical self, but of your life. And that poisoning can be alcohol, it can be some other drug, it can be a lot of different bad habits. So the same principles that apply to this, that we teach across the board, can be applied to anything else. And the same principles of that change, of what is going to happen on the other side of that change, or the possibilities, the potential for change on the other side of that. This is what is that we're talking about. This is the reality of once you stop a bad habit, and what you do afterwards is what matters. Like I said, you can stop drinking and you can go through your life thinking that you're an alcoholic and having that straitjacket on, but that's going to hold you back from so much. If you can release yourself from that, and if you can take on board a few different mindsets, growth mindset being one of the major ones, that you are not in a fixed space, which is what an alcoholic is, and that you can grow and you can achieve more. You can move outside of that, like you would with almost any other change that you make in your life. You move forward, you move away from what you're doing, and that's it. So my biggest regret, as I've said, was that I didn't stop drinking alcohol when my son was born. And there's nothing I can do about that. I mean, I can manipulate my thoughts a little bit, can change my mindset, and I can say, right, well, this is what I'm doing now. These are the changes that I've made now. These are the things that I'm trying to put in place to try and mitigate all the personal damage that that's done to myself, right? But I can't change that fact. I can't go back. So when I hear parents, especially dads, speaking about their children, speaking about the fact that they want to stop drinking alcohol, I always say, go for it, because I wish that somebody would give me that opportunity. If somebody, could wave a magic wand and say to me, you've got 3 wishes, all 3 wishes will be to go back to that time and to stop drinking before he was born. Maybe not all 3, but the first one would be anyway, You get what I mean? So I always say to people, look, this is the one thing that I would do if I could change my life, is to go back and change that one thing. You have that opportunity. The opportunity is there for you. If your kids are young, you've got the possibility of doing it now, because you will get to a stage. The likelihood is you're going to get to a stage where you're thinking, why didn't I do this sooner, If you're thinking about it now, it doesn't take a genius to work out what's going to happen in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, if you don't do it. So, stopping drinking alcohol for this is the simple part, the easy part. As we've said in the last one, it's the vulnerability that stops a lot of people from moving forwards. They can't stand that, putting themselves in that vulnerable position. It's the hardest, most difficult part. At the beginning, I used to think it was just the discomfort, that people didn't want to go forward because of the discomfort. But that discomfort comes in a lot of different flavors. And it is understanding that vulnerability and accepting it, but also embracing it and saying, well, it's only through that feeling, getting outside of my comfort zone, getting into that discomfort zone and feeling vulnerable, that you're going to grow, that you're going to change anything. It's like the crab that sheds its shell, and for that space in time, it's vulnerable to a lot of different predators until it grows another shell. So that's what transition is like. It's like having that, going from that, from 2 different shells. So you have to grow a new shell to to house your new bigger body. If you're a crab, for fuck's sake. It's a good analogy, though. I think. But you get to choose. That's the whole point of this. Most of the habits that we have, if you think about it, think about all your habits that you've got, and most of them are they've been developed over years without thinking about them. They're just part of who you are. They're part of your culture. They're part of your family. They're part of your education, or whatever it is that you've done up until this time. Very few of our habits are actually deliberately constructed. So this is what I always say about when you make a change like this, such a simple change. You're changing one thing, but it has such drastic and huge implications for your life, or huge possibilities for your life, that the potential for change is so big, because you have to reimagine, you have to dig down into so many different areas of your life and change so many different areas of your life, that if you want to get to that best possible version of yourself, for instance, you have to build habits that are helping you to get there. Habits are a great tool that we've got on our side, But they can also be a horrible tool, because if you've got the wrong habits, they're leading you down automatically down a wrong path of self-destruction. So, you know, as a dad, right, you're a role model. As a mum, you're a role model. So if you think about it realistically, what you're doing, as an alcohol drinker, you are a drug user. So switch the drug from alcohol to something else, right? Heroin or cocaine or whatever other illicit drug you want to use. And how do you feel about yourself now in the same role? So you've done nothing but switch the one drug. So you switch the drug out, and what do you think about yourself if you were a parent and you were a cocaine user and you were taking cocaine as much as you're drinking alcohol? That should change the way you think about it. But why? You know, the legality of the drug doesn't affect the drug itself. It doesn't affect what it does to you. It only affects, I suppose, the moral side of things. So, look, I'm not going to labor this point. It's, if you've got that opportunity and you're thinking about stopping drinking alcohol, just think about it from that perspective. Put yourself down the road 5 years and see where you're going to be, you know. It doesn't take a genius to work out that if you continue doing what you're doing, you know, take yourself back 5 years and see how further down the hole you've dug yourself because of your habit. And then just extrapolate that, turn it over and put it forward 5 years. But you're also in a situation now where you've got other people to care about. You know, the more you drink, the less money you have, the more sensitive you get to alcohol. All these other things are conspiring against you, and, you know, things are not going to get easier. So just think about that. I'm going to leave it there for today. I really appreciate the new members. I appreciate everyone that's come on board. I hope you have a great weekend. Like I say, we'll be back in August for our next one. I'm not sure what day in August. The beginning of August anyway, the first week probably. And there'll also be a few more videos that are going up in the meantime. So yeah, I look forward to making those and posting them. Take care of yourself, and I will speak to you